You're in.
You're in.
Commissioners, General Manager, fellow employees, ratepayers. I just want to say that my thoughts and opinions are my own. It may or may not reflect what TMLP's policies are. I just had to put that out there. I don't want to get in any trouble. So as Ken said, this is a continuing of the presentation of the green initiatives that we've been doing over the past few weeks. The last presentation you did hear about renewable energy certificates, and it was mentioned by Devin Tremont. In this presentation, we're going to take a closer look at what a renewable energy certificate, or REC, is. REC is the acronym. How it works, how they're created, how they're stored, and what effect they can have on the electric bill. At some points, you're going to see me reading, because this is very specific, the wording, so I will be reading at some points. Okay, what is a renewable energy certificate? A renewable energy certificate, or REC, represents the environmental attribute associated with 1 megawatt hour of electricity production. RECs can be traded, bought, and sold separately from the commodity of the electricity generation. So that is depicted by this graphic here. You can see a conventional generator producing electricity, putting it out to the grid, resulting in going to a home or business. You can also see a wind turbine, which is considered to be a renewable resource, putting electricity onto the same grid, being consumed by a home or business. But as a result of that generator being a renewable generator, when it generates 1 megawatt hour of electricity, it is now also produced a renewable energy certificate, one renewable energy certificate. And that renewable energy certificate is there and can be used, consumed, bought, sold, stored, or retired. Renewable energy certificates. They were created by the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, a federal government, and it is a market-based instrument. What that means is, so the best way for people to try to understand it, it's very similar to the stock market. It's a certificate that can be traded, as I said before, and if it is deemed by the person who owns it, they have the right to claim it as a renewable energy source, or they could sell it for money. The energy produced, again, by the generator is totally separate from this REC. So it's a separate commodity that is able to be used within that generator's portfolio, business case, pro forma, whatever way you want to say that. If you own the REC, you may not necessarily be generating renewable energy in your service territory. It simply allows you to report that you digitally own the renewable energy generation. That means you cannot produce any electricity. Even a private citizen, a corporation, they can become reporting as renewable energy, as a clean energy resource, just by buying the REC or obtaining the REC and thus retiring it, and now they are deemed to be clean. The way that these are stored are within a computer system called the Generation Information System, or the GIS. Mark, you may remember, you heard about the GIS back in the day.
Yep.
And it was for collecting data about generators.
Yep.
Well, now it's kind of morphed into collecting generation information about all types of generation. And if you're a renewable, well, then you've got something good going. There are 11 different GIS systems across the United States and Canada. TMLP is in the NEPOOL GIS region. And once you have a REC in the system, so basically if you're a wind turbine, solar power, a renewable energy generator, you put these certificates into the system, and there are different things you could do with them. One of these items that you can do, or one of the options is you could bank it. That means you have that rec available to be sold, retired, but it does not count towards your portfolio. So it's basically a storage spot that you're holding, i.e. the bank, those GIS certificates. I mean, the rec certificates within the GIS system. Another option is to put them in the sell category. So with that, the recs are purchased or available to be purchased by another party, and ownerships of those recs can change hands, obviously for some monetary fee. You can also retire these. This is a very, interesting concept, and it's very timely because a lot of people have mentioned, do you have recs and have you retired them? Because if you own them, if you put them into the retirement category, they're no longer available to be sold, they're not banked, you can't use them at a later date, and they become part of your green portfolio. So now if you retire 1 megawatt hour or one renewable energy certificate, you have now earned that right to say you have 1 megawatt hour of green or renewable resource. So where do we use these? Who uses them? How do they come about? What's the purpose? So the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, the DEP, put forth a regulation which currently applies to utilities and competitive suppliers of electricity to procure increasing amounts of clean energy. The goal of this is to set a minimum percentage of electricity sales that a utility must have that is from a clean energy source. It begins at 16% in 2018 and increases 2% annually to 80% in 2050. So you may have heard us mention in these commission meetings and outside areas, this 80% by 2050. That's where this originates from, the DEP 310 CMR 775. So basically what this means is you take your sales of electricity, you multiply it by the percentage in that year, and that's the amount of clean energy source that you must have. Now, of course, there's a lot of red tape and paperwork under this as to what is a clean energy source. And one of the things that is most important, or we find most interesting, is the generation source must have commenced operation after December 31st, 2010. So if you were a clean energy source that operated before that, you're not clean. You're not considered clean under this standard. Seems strange because TMLP was an early adopter of buying clean energy, whether it be from landfill gas, anaerobic digestion, hydro, or nuclear. We've been doing this since 1990, but a lot of those don't qualify under this because of the way that the standard has been written. So how to meet the standard? Now you know what the standard is. So where do you get these things? How do you get them? How do you get them transferred into your account? Well, you can do a direct purchase. You can set up a purchase power agreement, a PPA, that includes RECs and buy them directly from the clean energy generator. So TMLP and also the IOUs can go out and purchase power that includes RECs. So you're buying the commodity of electricity generation and RECs. You may be buying other products related to that generator. You may be buying capacity products. You may be buying 10-minute spinning reserve, 30-minute operating reserve, whatever that generator is qualified for. Now, TMLP, when we have done our purchase power agreements with 6 solar sites all around our 100 square mile area, we have purchased the power from them, just the energy from them. We don't own the RECs. We didn't purchase the RECs. And some of the reasons why we didn't purchase the RECs at that time was we're not required to buy them. 775 CMR doesn't apply to municipal light plants at this time. So it was a decision made that we're going to have least cost and competitive rates for our customers, so we're not going to purchase something that we don't need. So we've left those with the developer, and the developer uses that as part of their business case to get this up and operating. But one of the facts is, if TMLP didn't buy the electricity generation from that, that solar field would not be built, because they need to have a 20-year contract to go to the bank and say, we're solar company X, we've got a signed purchase power agreement with TMLP for 20 years, here's the rate that they're going to give us, here's how much we're going to produce. And the bank says, oh, that looks great. Now, the RECs is an ever-changing market. The prices fluctuate up and down. But from what I've seen, my experience, if you were to buy the RECs included with the purchase power of the megawatt hours, the output, that REC price is generally at the fair market value at the time of the signing of the contract with an escalator. So let's just give an example. Today, you go out and buy a purchase power contract. The counterparty says, well, they're worth 20 bucks. So you're going to pay $20 on top of the electricity price that you just bought. And then they're going to say, but we think it's going to escalate for the next 10 years at 3%. So we have to make an educated guess, and we have to go back and forth. And if we sign on, then we sign on, and we get the RECs to us, $20, 3% escalator for 10 years. But if the REC, again, so now we're buying a product we don't need, we're adding expenses to the customer, and if the REC market falls through, like sometimes the REC market has fallen through because it's a very unstable market, because these regulations change on a 5-year cycle, those RECs may not be worth that price. They may go down to $1. They may go down to 50 cents. And now we're buying a $20 product that we don't need that's really marketable only at 50 cents. So let's move on. How else can companies meet this standard? You get them at an auction. So as with many energy products and other types of products, we could go to eBay. Well, they don't have any really an eBay for RECs, but something but something similar. They have a clearinghouse or an auction where you can purchase RECs via trading program on the secondary market. So basically, people that have excess RECs, whether it be the generator or people that are holding them decide to sell them, they put them into an auction. A certain volume is bid upon, certain financials are exchanged, you put in the bid price that you'd like to pay, and it clears and you pay them. That's one way of fulfilling your clean energy standard REC portion. And that's basically, or I think, one way that the IOUs are doing this. And I'll summarize that at the end. The last alternative that you can to meet the standard is you could pay a compliance payment, which is basically a penalty. So if you don't go out and buy any RECs, you're supplying energy in Massachusetts to customers, you're going to pay a compliance fee, which is basically a penalty. It's based upon the auction price and then marked up from there. It's usually only an option if you run short, you didn't clear the auction, you were hedging your bets. So it's not something that you want to pay. You'd rather get it in some other vehicle. Now, how are the IOUs doing this? What are they doing? Basically what they're doing is they're purchasing some out of the direct purchase pile from projects within their service territory. And they're also, when they go out for supply resources for their KWH, for their customers, they're also saying, I need a certain amount of clean energy standard product. I need a certain amount of RECs based on their sales. And then people will offer them those RECs, and then they'll purchase them. That's how the IOUs are handled. How does it look to the customer, though? Well, here we have two bills. These are both from IOUs. And this is how it looks on an investor-owned utility customer residential bill. you can see in the red boxes, there's the energy efficiency charge, renewable energy charge, and distribution of solar charge. So, as these regulations are put forth, they're calling out to their customers that you're paying extra, and here's the charge, so that the actual customer can see this. Now, we've calculated that if TMLP was to be included in this standard, that would be an impact of about 2.2 cents per kWh. Now, as Ken mentioned, 750 is the average that we like to use for a customer. That would be an increase of $16.50 per month.
For the average customer's bill.
The average customer's bill. Now, if we were included in 775 or some other type of iteration, we may opt for this type of line item charge to ensure that this, again, this is a charge that TMLP has been forced into, and here it is on your, called out on your line item on your bill.
Jim?
Mr. Blackwell? Jim?
Jim,
Yes.
if we could, we just go back to the Rex for 1 second. I know with the TMLP, what we do is we allow the homeowner or the solar field to retain the RECs for themselves. They do that for their own tax benefits and what have you. The IOUs, from what I've been told by many people from outside of our service territory, is that the IOUs own those RECs. So what we're doing at the TMLP, I mean, what we could do, we could take all the RECs from all the solar and keep them for ourselves, but we don't do that. We actually give it to the ratepayer that actually goes and puts the equipment on their house, on their roofs. So I see that as a significant difference.
I can cite a specific example, Commissioner Blackwell. A lot of these projects don't get built unless the contractor gets to keep and then do whatever they want with the RECs. I'll give you an example. Miles Standish,
Right.
just
Right.
recently, last year, that REC program ended, and as a result, because they weren't able to maintain those RECs, the project didn't get built.
Right.
The TMLP's primary interest is in protecting the ratepayer. As the commission, that's the edict from the commission.
Correct.
And that's what ESP does, that's what we do, is try to get the best deal for the ratepayer. You know, the fallacy of keeping the RECs or selling the RECs or banking the RECs or retiring the RECs, in the end, we want to get the best deal for the ratepayer.
Right.
And if it's green energy and we want to have green energy, well, we just want to get the green energy for the best price we can. And
Absolutely.
in most cases, that means allowing the counterparty to keep or maintain control
But
of
it almost
those
seems like
RECs.
we're being penalized for giving the savings back to the ratepayer.
We are being penalized by third-party special
that's what I'm
interest
saying.
groups. You know, they say we're not being transparent. They say that we're being misleading. Nobody here is trying to mislead anybody. Everyone is aware, and we've said it in public a number of times, how we handle, you know, RECs. The idea is to provide the best deal to the ratepayer that we can when it comes to the purchase of renewable energy. And most of the time, that means allowing the third party, the counterparty, to maintain that side
Right.
of the process. Jim, if I say misspeak, you'll correct me. And so here it is out in the open.
Well, that's why, you know, when I read this, preparing for the meeting, kind of stuck with me a little bit. And it seems to me like we're being penalized by giving the ratepayer what they deserve, where the IOUs are keeping the RECs and the certificate for every megawatt for themselves. I mean, you figure, what are we, about 22 megawatts right now?
Right.
So every megawatt, so we'd have 22.
So
RECs.
common sense-wise, Commissioner Blackwell, let me ask you a question. If we don't maintain those RECs, does that mean we're not buying the green energy from those solar fields? That is the fallacy of this situation. The special interest groups will say, you're double counting, because you're saying you've got green energy, but you've sold off the credits. Well, from a ratepayer perspective, we don't care about those RECs. We care
Right.
about that we've got 22
Exactly.
megawatts of solar power in our
Exactly.
territory, and we are directly buying that power through those PPAs.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so I'm not sure who's being misleading, but I'm pretty sure
Well,
it's
I
not
know,
us.
I'll just tell you a quick story. I went to a doctor, and one of his nurses, the doctor was interested in putting solar on his house. He lives in our area, in our service territory. And one of his nurses was, I was telling him about it. At that time, we were given $10,000 towards the installation. So when the doctor left, she ended up telling me, I've got a better deal. She got a better deal. She says, yeah, she says, it's not costing me anything. I said, well, how many kilowatts do you have? And she wasn't sure. And then after shooting the breeze with her, I asked her about I said, were you able to keep the RECs? She didn't know what I was talking about. Then through talking to her, she says, yes, she says, so she's not keeping her RECs. And she was being charged about $90 a month extra on her bill. So you do the math, and I know we've got a math professor here, you do the math, and it was up over $20,000 in the 20 years' time, and never got to keep the RECs.
So, and Commissioner Blackwell, the funny thing about this poor person who actually put solar on his or her house, right? Now, should she not be able to say that she has solar on her house because she didn't keep the RECs? So this is the fallacy of the whole situation.
Okay, and I just wanted to point that out because it kind of didn't sit well with me when I read that, and I apologize, Jim, for taking so long.
Thanks, Jim.
Moving on.
So where is TMLP? What are we doing to be green? So we're going to go through a few projects that TMLP currently owns. TMLP has purchased 100 million kilowatt hours of non-carbon emitting energy from solar, which has been produced within the TMLP service territory. These are just from the solar facilities. It doesn't include the Taunton landfill. It doesn't include the net metering. It's just from the 6 large solar fields. I can guarantee you that all of that electricity that was purchased was consumed by TMLP customers, despite TMLP not owning the RECs.
So it doesn't count.
TMLP is purchasing the energy from this solar field and 6 others. TMLP purchase of the electricity enables the project to be financed and built. So this is this picture in the top right hand, that is on Pedalford Street and Berkeley. You can see Route 24 is on the upper right-hand corner, and you can see some of the solar field if you drive by. This was I believe, a farm, and then I think it was a horse farm, and they still have horses there today. So a little bit of facts about that. It is 2.94 megawatts, 11,770 panels, and this contract was signed in 2012. This is the community solar project that was recently commissioned and turned on at the end of January 2019. It's a 3-megawatt system, 8,400 panels producing 3.5 megawatts. Carbon-free energy generated from this will displace 270,000 tons of CO2, equivalent to preserving 226 acres of forest.
But it doesn't count.
400 customers are now receiving the credit on their monthly bill for participating in this project. So as you know, this is community solar, so actual customers are receiving a credit on their bill for participating in this type of project. So we've gathered some facts about TMLP that we think are important to be said. TMLP has been purchasing carbon-free energy generation since 1990. TMLP has purchased RECs and retired them. We have done that. TMLP's mission statement is environmentally conscious. TMLP has provided the means of carbon-free energy to be built and operated locally and in New England. TMLP rates are competitive and below the investor for-profit owned utilities. TMLP is in full compliance with all federal, state, and local environmental regulations. So So these are facts that, as again, we thought that the public should hear and all of us should be able to understand. So when we read things and we think that they're the truth, these are the truths. TMLP is not opposed to clean renewable energy. We've built a lot of it within TMLP and the surrounding area, whether it be Fall River, New Bedford, Halifax, Bridgewater. Those are projects that we invested in. This is a very similar slide that was up the last meeting, 2019, and looking ahead. We do have the final numbers from 2019. Renewable energy made up 22.8% of our portfolio.
Jim, if I may?
Yes.
The special interest groups will state that we are misrepresenting by utilizing that 22.8% as a number because we are counting all of our solar and other renewables, even though we do not have the RECs. So we're making it very clear right now, there is no misrepresentation. We do not have the RECs, but we are buying that energy, and that is renewable, clean energy. I think that should be transparent enough for everyone. Sorry, Jim.
In 2019, we've already signed contracts or had generation come online for an additional 4.7% of hydro, which does include RECs, 0.5% of solar, that's the Rainham Community Solar, and 1.8% of wind. We have also committed to an additional 8 megawatts of offshore wind into the future. Again, we've purchased RECs and retired them, and we are currently studying and moving forward with additional community solar within TMLP service territory.
I have a question, Jim. On those, the offshore wind, are we gonna get credit for those RECs?
Yes,
We will.
yes. That is
Okay, because
part,
that's outside of our
Yeah.
service territory, and that'll be part of the contract?
So per the commission's direction, we are working towards voluntarily,
Yep.
without requirement, moving in the direction of the 80%. And this is a
Yep.
conversation we'll have at another time. And so we've been slowly, as it makes sense to do so, building in some rec percentage. And this 8 megawatts of offshore, which is a significant amount of offshore for our
Sure.
portfolio, will include recs when it comes into play in 2021?
24, I think.
Okay, it's in the, so we're already planning
Yep.
that far ahead at this point. So yes.
Thank you.
Is the short answer to that question.
So what does this mean to the ratepayer? Well, the ratepayer's voice always matters. They're the strongest voice that we listen to at all times. So what can you do? There are currently several bills in the legislature to change how municipals are treated with relation to renewable energy. Please stay informed and think about how regulations may affect the reliability and the cost of your electricity. So you see, people go on websites, they see things on Facebook, they think, oh, that's great. That's great. Everybody wants to be greener. We started with recycling many years ago. We had compact fluorescents. I had a home energy audit done. I looked at buying an EV. So those things are great. But when you see regulations, those things are choices, what I'm trying to say. Those are choices that an individual person made. If I want to go out and buy LEDs, it's my money coming out of my pocket, handing it over to somebody, and I'm getting an LED. But when a regulation is put in place, it's put in place for all people, all 38,000 customers. All those bills are possibly you're going to see an increase in cost in the name of being greener. So try to stay informed. If you have questions, I'm sure we can help you. We can clarify what we mean and what those legislative issues and what those mean. Because they seem interesting, and they are at some point, but it may not be at this point. So in closing, TMLP provides reliable, competitive price services to a community. Just want to flip this page. TMLP is publicly powered by customers with elected officials, which are you, that represent the wants and needs of the ratepayers. TMLP works hard to be a good neighbor in our community and a steward of the environment that we all live in. TMLP is in compliance with, again, with all state, local, and federal laws, and with rules in respect to climate change, clean energy planning, and energy efficiency requirements. Any other questions?
Very interesting stuff,
Yeah, thank you.
very informative.
I appreciate the commission's patience. That was a lot to digest, but it needed to get out. And Jim, thank you very much, and the whole team. That was a really great package of information.
Yeah, very informative.
It's important that the ratepayer digest this kind of information as they move forward to make decisions. And it's important to understand that nobody's hiding anything here. We do the best we can for the ratepayer, and that means most of the time selling or allowing the third party, the counterparty, to keep those recs. And I'm repeating it one last time. But in the end, the bottom line is we're buying that power from that renewable energy source. And most of the time, it's in our own territory.
Right.
So for your consideration, I appreciate the patience.
Mr. Blackwell?
Is there anything that we could do, I'm looking at Jim's next to the last slide, and there are currently several bills in the legislature to change how municipals are treated relation to renewable energy. Could anything be done for the renewable energy credits to modify that somehow? Have we approached our legislative delegates on that as far as to get credit for stuff that's being done within our own service territory that we're not getting credit for and being criticized for?
I want to be very careful at how I answer this question, because I don't want to use the same disclaimer that Jim did at the beginning of his presentation. But the idea of these credits, to me, personally, has always been an idea of just financial modification to make it more amenable to contractors to invest in these projects. Without those recs, and again, I'll use Miles Standish as a perfect example. The recs dry up, and what happens?
Yeah,
These
they're gone.
subsidies, I'll use the word subsidy, okay, help keep these projects afloat. And so it is difficult to try to perform a modification to that program. It's so embedded in everything that happens in this state from the renewable perspective. The best that we can hope for is that as we move forward voluntarily, that the legislature doesn't change the game so much that we cannot operate in the method that we're operating today. And trust me, there are plenty of special interests that are pushing that exact agenda, right now. So we can talk to our legislative contingent and attempt to push that idea. I can only state, though, that I expect it to be met with a lot of friction, because that piece of it, that's the way all these projects get funded. And it's odd. On the one hand, the projects don't get funded if those recs are not available for the counterparty, but on the other hand, they want us to keep the recs. And so you can't have both sides of the fence.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying take it away from the ratepayer
Yeah.
that's putting it up on their home. I'm just saying getting credit for the rec.
Oh, well, excellent point. I mean, and I think,
I'm not saying to try to take it away from somebody,
Yeah.
to take for the TMLP, but just get recognition for the megawatts that we should be getting for the renewable energy certificates.
I think some of the legislation that's just been co-sponsored in the House will help in that regard. So that's actually happening as we speak, as far as accounting for assets before 2010 and a lot of this other stuff that they're trying to essentially do away with. So, yes.
I apologize for taking so long, but it just kind of frosted.
No, this is an extremely important topic to the ratepayer. And so it's important that they digest all of this.
Well, if anyone thinks we're not green, they should see the warrants that we sign on a regular basis, paying these solar farms
They don't count.
tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, the recs don't,
They don't count.
they don't count.
They don't count.
For the electricity that they're producing.
And we're hiding that from the public, according to the special interest groups. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.